Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. My name is Tony Fisher. I serve this congregation as its minister with love and gladness. It's great to have you with us this morning. It's great to be with you. If you're joining us here for the first time, you'll hear all sorts of things that's happening here in a minute and how you might be able to connect. I'm grateful at least to have a few people in the sanctuary here with us. Daniel Goodsit, as always, in the AV room, and John Forsyth, our technology chair, here as well. And this morning, our wonderful worship associate, Patty Bryan, will bring you the announcements.
Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. I'm Patty Bryan. I'm your worship associate for today. If you're new to us, welcome. We hope you'll make yourself known in the comments section below the live stream so that we can say hello. We also hope that you'll email our administrator at office@uunaples.org so that we can include you in our regular news blasts, which cover all the excellent things that are going on here at UUCGN. Good grief. This week is a busy one. This afternoon at 4 o'clock, the drum circle for all ages gathers on the pavilion. We will be led once again by the fantastic percussionist Isaac Fernandez, who makes these circles so enjoyable. Tomorrow evening at 7 p.m., our Mindful Monday Forum will feature Collier County Public Schools Superintendent Kamala Patton, who will bring us up to date on what's been happening in our schools and on the plans for the coming year. And over the next 3 Wednesday evenings at 7 o'clock, Wonderful Wednesdays will present Our Living Tradition, the past, present, and future of Unitarian Universalism, led by our own Reverend Tony Fisher. If that's not enough, then there's always the daily gentle yoga with Lois and the Tuesday afternoon mindful meditation online. Look for details for these and more upcoming events in this morning's Sunday news, or check our website at www.uunaples.org. One more thing that you should know. All you out there in TV land, you light up my life and the lives of other people as well. So remember that. And now, let's settle ourselves into this time of worship with the morning's prelude.
Do not leave your cares at the door. Do not leave them there when you come into this place. Be open to forgiveness and transformation. Come on in, you are welcome here. And do not leave your cares at the door. Oh, bring your pain and sorrow and joy. There's a place for them upon the altar of life. Be open to forgiveness and transformation. Come on in, you are welcome here. And do not leave your cares at the door. This is a place of grace, place of losing and finding our way upon the winding road, meeting and parting, stumbling and starting over. Every story is sacred here, even yours, even yours. So come Do not leave your cares at the door. Do not leave them there when you come into this place. Be open to forgiveness and transformation. Come on in, you are welcome in.
Come in.
And do not leave your cares at the door. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Do not leave your cares at the door. And though you may not have crossed any thresholds this morning, come on in. Come on into this sanctuary of peace. May you find here the stillness to calm a busy mind. Come into this sanctuary of hope. May you find here an inspiring word. Come to this sanctuary of care. May you find here open arms to soothe an aching heart. Welcome into this time together, this sanctuary we create together. Home to all that we are and all that we wish to be. Let's join together in our chalice lighting response that you'll see on your screen. In the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment, we gather this day. May the flame we now kindle be to us a symbol of the unity we seek. And I hope you'll join me in singing our opening hymn, though you won't hear me this time, Wo-Ya-Ya, sung this morning by the First Unitarian Church in Baltimore Choir.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be
Unbecoming. It's become popular in our society to talk about spiritual journeys as a process of living into your full or true self, of letting the authentic seed inside you unfold. We UUs agree. We even enshrined it in our principles that celebrate the inherent worth and the unique journeys of each of us. At the same time, there's something deep within UUism that pushes in the opposite direction. Historically, we've been leavers, people who struggled not so much to find ourselves, but to untangle ourselves from the religious identities that we had been given. Many of our spiritual journeys did not begin with a blank slate. They began with the hunger to wipe the slate clean and start all over again. So, we have this important awareness that spiritual journeys are not simply about unfolding your true self, but also about untangling your true self. It was Albert Schweitzer who wrote, "The path of awakening is not about becoming who you are. Rather, it is about unbecoming who you are not." Which means we have to be sensitive to the fact that most spiritual journeys begin with a goodbye, a separation, a decision to walk away. We know that the first step is often laced with mourning. Difficult endings and all too often isolation are involved. We know that unbecoming is not easy work. We also know that it isn't a one-time thing. We find ourselves routinely tempted into and thus tangled up in all kinds of identities and journeys that really aren't truly ours. Unbecoming who you are not is a journey in and of itself.
Unbecoming who you are not is a journey in and of itself. There's a story that could have perhaps come from the time that Albert Schweitzer in the early 20th century was doing his medical missionary work in Africa, or it could have come from any other time when indigenous wisdom sort of came to the fore. This story speaks of a time in Africa when Europeans were exploring and exploiting and missionizing. It's the story of one particular expedition led by a European who was on the move to get to a destination as quickly as possible, moving through the undergrowth, fording streams as quickly as possible, finding ways over hills and mountains, with guides and porters to help the journey. Fairly well into this rapid expedition, about 2 hours into a day, all of a sudden, the natives who were guiding and carrying stopped. And the European, who was quite happy with the progress of the expedition so far, wondered what was going on. What happened? Why are we stopped? We just started this day a few hours ago. You're rested. What's happening? And one of the guides spoke. He said, "We're not tired. We've just been moving so quickly. We've left our souls behind. Now we have to wait for them to catch up. We've left our souls behind." We Unitarian Universalists sometimes struggle with the idea of soul or spirit. We are not dualist thinking people. We consider the human being a whole, its rational mind, its emotional mind, body, all as one. And yet this story speaks to us about sometimes moving away from our own center, from getting too far in front of ourselves, perhaps making choices that don't necessarily align with who we think we are at the center. The idea of soul or spirit, as I say, sometimes is a difficult one for those of us who are particularly careful about definitions and not wanting to appear that we have any idea of a supernatural or a separation of body and spirit. But for us, I think either soul or spirit can be equally described as that dimension within ourselves which connects us to our center and outward to the world. That reflective ability that can help us center and then lift us up. That reflective ability that can make us feel whole in one particular moment, that can empower us and transform us to live our lives growing in community, in integrity, in serenity, in hope. And sometimes we can lose that center, that reflective ability. At the beginning of the pandemic, in this very, very strange year, I remember speaking right from this pulpit and talking about, though understanding the significance, or perhaps at that time what we understood as the significance of this event, that perhaps this time of isolation and separation was an opportunity as well for those of us who could to take a deep breath and center. And as we all know, this year has unfolded in very different ways than what we anticipated. This pandemic has gone on a lot longer. Events in our nation have seemed to unfold week after week, or day after day, or even minute after minute, taking our attentions away, sometimes rightly so, sometimes to our own detriment. I'm grateful for Patty's introduction this morning. I didn't know what she was going to say, but it is important for me, for Patty, for any of us to acknowledge how much each of us means to the other. The truth is that you are loved for who you are. And it is also true that who you are changes all the time as you respond to the events in your own life and into the world outside. And yet, even in this time, we have been impacted by so many things, and perhaps it's true for you because I know it certainly has been true for me, that I have needed to stop and wait for my soul to catch up. That's what this service is about this morning. The task of unbecoming who we are not. A journey in and of itself. Let's center our minds and hearts with our hymn this morning, Blessed Spirit of My Life, sung by the First Parish Brewster Unitarian Universalist Choir, Brewster, Massachusetts.
Blessed Spirit of my life, give me strength through stress and strife. Help me live with dignity. Let me know serenity. Fill me with a vision. Clear my mind of fear and confusion. When my thoughts flow restlessly, let peace find a home in me. Spirit of great mystery, hear the still small voice in me. Help me live my wordless creed as I comfort those in need. Fill me with compassion, be the source of my intuition. Then when life is done for me, let love be my legacy.
As we enter this time of sharing of joys and sorrows, let's acknowledge our life's journey. The times when we are lifted up and transformed, and the times when we are brought down. Sometimes through no fault of our own, sometimes by our own missteps. In this time, the sanctuary feels particularly quiet. And yet I know that each one of you has gone through so much this year, some more than others. Nonetheless, each of us has our life to live, and it involves the hills and the valleys. We have one thing to share this morning from Bridget Sparling, a sigh of relief that her daughter Morgan Hartman has undergone successful surgery, cancer surgery on her esophagus. Last week in Miami, Bridget was able to go over and visit Morgan and see that she was in recovery and doing okay. Bridget's grateful for Morgan's partner Phil, who takes good care, and for Adrian Cady, our own chair of our caring committee, for taking her over to the East Coast to visit Morgan last Sunday. I want to lift up the caring legacy of this congregation, having been aware all this year of the love that has extended out in a network, in a beautiful web of caring over phone lines and in-person visits. It's been remarkable to witness secondhand and firsthand the love that we each hold for one another, the beauty of this community, its strength, its resilience. And so I want to lift all of you up in that loving community that is the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. If you have someone that you're thinking of specifically and you'd like it mentioned on Sunday morning or in the caring corner that goes out early in the week, please let me know, and I will either share it here or in the caring corner or both. And if you are thinking of someone this morning, then let's stop and take a minute to honor those feelings, those sharings. If you have somebody you're thinking about, please speak their name out loud wherever you are, whoever you're with. Share their name into the space around you. And we hold you and them in our hearts this morning. Let's center ourselves in the spirit of meditation. These words by the wonderful theologian and activist, Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman. How good it is to center down. How good it is to center down, to sit quietly and see one's self pass by. The streets of our minds seethe with endless traffic. Our spirits resound with clashings, with noisy silences. While something deep within hungers and thirsts for the still moment and the resting lull. With full intensity we seek, ere the quiet passes, a fresh sense of order in our living. A direction, a strong purpose that will structure our confusion and bring meaning to our chaos. We look at ourselves in this waiting moment, the kind of people that we are. The question persists. What are we doing with our lives? What are the motives that order our days? What is the end of our doings? Where are we trying to go? Where do we put the emphasis, and where are our values focused? For what end do we make sacrifices? Where is my treasure? What do I value most in life? What do I hate most in life? And to what am I true? Over and over, questions beat upon the waiting moment. As we listen, floating up through all the jangling echoes of our turbulence, there is a sound of another kind, a deeper note, which only the stillness of the heart can make clear. It moves directly to the core of our being. Our questions are answered, our spirits refreshed, as we move back into the traffic of our daily round with the peace of the eternal in our step. How good it is to center down. Let's share some silence together.
The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. This is one of my absolute favorite poems by one of my absolute favorite poets. It really speaks to me, and I think it probably speaks to almost everybody. Almost all of us have taken one road instead of the other, made this decision instead of that one. And it rings true. Robert Frost was born in 1874 and died at 89 years old in 1963. He attended Dartmouth and Harvard, but never earned a formal college degree. He read one of his poems at John Kennedy's inauguration, and in 1962, he was presented a Congressional Gold Medal for his work. He was named Vermont's Poet Laureate. He earned 4 Pulitzer Prizes for his work and was awarded over 40 honorary degrees. The Road Not Taken was a poem written in 1915 as a joke. It was a joke on his friend, the poet Edward Thomas. Apparently, they often went out for walks together, and Thomas always had problems deciding which road to take. At the end of the walk, he routinely griped that they should have taken the other road. After writing this poem as a joke, Frost read it to an audience of college students. And later he complained, they took it pretty seriously, despite my doing my best to make it obvious that I was fooling. Mea culpa. I'm never more serious than when I'm joking. The Road Not Taken. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry that I could not travel both and be one traveler, long I stood and looked down as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though, as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Now is the time for us to express our gratitude for this community, its work, its vision, and all the ways in which it nourishes our lives. From its welcoming doors and sheltering walls, to its good and generous people, from the sanctuary of its memorial garden to its outreach in the wider community. For all these things, and for the ways it works magic in your life, the morning's offering for the ongoing mission of this congregation will be gratefully received. Please consider mailing a contribution today. The address is here on the screen. Or you can go to www.uunaples.org, where you'll find a donate button and where you can find out a lot more about this congregation.
I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. What road do you think of? Which of those two roads do you hold in your mind when you hear that poem? Is it the road taken, the choice? Or do you think perhaps of the road not taken? The one maybe you should have taken? I want to thank Patty for her story of that poem. I hadn't heard that before. I've always found the poem particularly moving. I have both recited it and sung it, a beautiful version of Frost's poems crafted by the composer Randall Thomas in a series of poems, Frost poems called Frostiana, just a beautiful rendition of the poem in song. And it has always sat well with me, and yet I have always thought about the road not taken as opposed ultimately to the choice of travel. Which road do you think of? Do you have regrets in the choices you've made somewhere along those many branching paths of life? Albert Schweitzer's quote, "The path of awakening is not about becoming who you are, rather it is about unbecoming who you are not," speaks to those many branches, those many choices we make in our lives every day. Sometimes getting ahead of ourselves through our choices, choosing the easy, choosing the path that may not be totally in alignment with ourselves, but seems the right path to take with so many things going on around us, so many pressures on us to make a certain choice, whether it is in our family life or in our work life. What kind of life experience do you suspect led Albert Schweitzer to write those two sentences? What was he going through to try and untie the knots that needed to be untied in his life, trying to unbecome who he had to become? Schweitzer in his life made a significant choice sometime after the age of 30 to move from being a successful author, lecturer, organ recitalist to going back to medical school and obtaining his degree and spending the rest of his life serving the people of Africa as a doctor. What kind of personal experiences have you had that might lead you to unbecoming, not in such a significant way perhaps, but to stop and center down, as Howard Thurman says, and consider unbecoming some things that you are not? As Patty read in her opening reading this morning, we Unitarian Universalists are, sort of all about becoming our best selves, and I've said that here from the pulpit many times. And yet, in our darkest moments, we know how hard that is, and that sometimes even my speaking from the pulpit can cause some guilt or anxiety or shame about not striving forward to be that person. What we do aim for is a wholeness. to find within even the darkest moments or the most troubled moments or the most busy moments a way for us to center down so that we can both care for ourselves and be aware of those around us. That sense of soul or spirit that involves the deepening, that makes us feel whole, that can empower us, involves a tremendous amount of honesty. Sometimes hard to find even for ourselves. Requires a great deal of humility, understanding clearly that we are not at the center of the universe, and that others around us share this gift of life, and that we need to honor that as much as we do the life within ourselves. I too made a choice to change careers much later than Albert Schweitzer. Certainly, I had thought about ministry for much of my life, from the age of 16 on, but waited 44 years before making a choice. And in those 44 years, I had a career that was, for the most part, successful, oftentimes rewarding. And yet I recognized as time went on in an industry that was changing, like many industries in our nation and in our economy, consolidating with pressures on price, which put pressures on individuals trying to make a living. In our case, the creative force that we tapped quite often for words, well-crafted words and beautiful illustrations and wonderful photography, being able to pay less and less for those skills, those crafts, tore at my heart. Recognizing that we couldn't put the quality into the work that we once did, disturbed. And yet, along those 30 plus years, 35 plus years in the business, I continued to make choices to find my own path, to make my own way to success. Reasonable choices, choices I would make again, most likely, to care for my family. And yet, finally, recognizing, because I had the privilege to do so, that I needed to make other choices, that I needed to rediscover, to try to come closer to that center, to unbecome what was unbecoming. What experiences in your own life might lead you to consider unbecoming? And goodness knows it happens to all of us every day. We make choices, and this pandemic has certainly wrought havoc with all of us. We are grieving, we are mourning, we're struggling with loneliness. We yearn to get back together. We yearn for a return to something that we can't recreate, and so we need to untie those knots and consider what it is we wish to create, first by unbecoming and letting go. In a twist to Albert Schweitzer's words, novelist Paulo Coelho suggests that maybe the journey isn't so much about becoming anything, maybe it's unbecoming everything that isn't you so that you can be who you were meant to be in the first place. It isn't so much a journey towards our best ideal selves, which will never exist, but being authentic to who we are. Sometimes that means beautiful. Sometimes that means not so much. We are human. As Richard Gilbert says, we are all more human than otherwise. My only hope for myself and for you is to recognize that it's a journey, unbecoming, figuring out which roads we do wish to go back to, which roads we can go back to and follow. There's a beautiful poem by Derek Walcott that speaks to that moment perhaps when we rediscover, at least in part, ourselves. It's called Love After Love. The time will come when with elation you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, "Sit here, eat." You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you have ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit. Feast on your life. The late Reverend Forrest Church wrote that each of us must assume the responsibility for our own awakening. Others may be responsible for our births, but what we make of our lives, how deeply and intensively we live, is ours alone. If we can accept the gift of life for ourselves, then too we must revere the presence of that gift in others, recognizing our place in a humanity, in a community of souls. Centering down, letting our souls catch up with us as we begin to consider if I could say this, the end of our isolation, our separation, as we begin to think about coming back together, thinking about creating something different, about letting go things that we have become that perhaps don't sit quite right, and entering into community again to create something new. Next week, our service is titled, "We Shape One Another." Sort of the second half of this, trying to speak to the fact that none of us can do this work alone, whether unbecoming or becoming. We need one another. There's a freedom in that. There's a joy in letting go, in finding once again ourselves in that mirror of it's reflected in the eyes of our fellow travelers. The joy in that freedom. And as we listen to the musical reflection, the musical response, I want you to think about letting your soul catch up and the journey of unbecoming.
it would feel to be free. I wish that I could break all the chains holding me. I wish that I could say all the things that I should say. Say them loud, say them clear, for the whole round world to hear. I wish I could share all the love that's in my heart. Remove all the bars that keep us apart. I wish you should know what it means to be me. Then you'd see and agree that every man should be free. I wish I could give all I'm longing to give. I wish I could live like I'm longing to live. I wish I could do all the things that I can do, though I'm way overdue. I'd be starting anew. Well, I wish that I could fly, be like a bird in the sky. How sweet it would be if I found that I could fly. Oh, I'd soar to the sun and look down at the sea. And then I'd sing, 'cause I know, yes, I'd sing, 'cause I know. I'd sing, 'cause I know. I would sing 'cause I know how it feels to be free.
Here's the truth. You are loved for who you are, and you are always changing. Sometimes it's important to stop, center down, and let your soul catch up. In the meantime, go out into the world in peace, have courage, hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings. And have a wonderful day.